guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Inheriting Everything, a tale of neglect, loss, and redemption. Growing up, my parents never showed me any love. My mother was always working, and my father resented me for ruining his dreams of playing college football. They kicked me out of my bedroom to make space for my younger sister, and I ended up sleeping on the couch for 2 years. When they decided to move away, they didn't even bother taking me with them. Fortunately, my grandparents agreed to take me in and treat me like their own child. I finally had a happy childhood, with my own room and new toys to play with. As I grew up and moved out, I continued to visit my grandparents and help them with their house. I learned the importance of being prepared and saving for the future from my grandfather, who wanted to build a bomb shelter during the Cold War. When my grandmother suddenly passed away, my grandfather and I were heartbroken. We tried to cope with our grief by renovating the house, and my grandfather doubled down on his saving habits. When my grandfather passed away a year and a half later, my parents made a scene at his funeral, even though they didn't even bother showing up for my grandmother's. At the will reading, they were shocked to find out that they had been disinherited for their mistreatment of me in my childhood. They threatened to sue me to contest the will, but the judge ruled in my favor and called my father a terrible parent. After the legal battle, my parents continued to harass me with calls and letters demanding money. I refused to give in, and eventually, they gave up and left me alone. Meanwhile, my sister struggled through failed marriages and a dead-end job, and my parents remained stuck in their own unhappy lives. Now in my late 30s, I live debt-free in a nice neighborhood with a paid-off house and a decent amount in the bank. Though I haven't had much luck with relationships, I'm considering becoming a stepfather. I'm grateful for my grandparents' love and support, and I hope to carry on their legacy of saving and preparing for the future. Update. Since inheriting my grandparents' house, I've been working on a new project to give back to my community. I've converted the garage into a community center for kids, complete with video games, board games, and sports equipment. I've been hosting game nights and outdoor activities for the neighborhood kids, and it's been great to see them having fun and making friends. I feel like I'm finally making a difference in my community and honoring my grandparents' legacy. The next story is titled, The Soy Lady. I recently read a story in here that reminded me of a malicious compliance I did years ago. This is a weird but innocuous one, so I hope you enjoy. Many years ago, I worked at a small cafe. The customers were generally lovely, and it was not a very popular place due to it being in a weird location, so it was always slow and quiet. We often got regular customers in, and when I started, I was warned about the soy lady. She was an older woman who came in to order an extra large takeaway cup of extremely hot soy milk. The staff would heat 2 cups of soy milk to the edge of burning, put it on the counter, and call her name. She would sit down at a table and wait for about 5 minutes after her name was called, then collect it. She then always came back to the counter after drinking half to complain the soy milk wasn't hot enough and demand for it to be redone. For free. She also argued the cost, $3, relentlessly, when she ordered at the counter. Our manager was a spineless weasel and hated customers getting Karen-y at the counter in case it caused other customers to think this is a bad place, so he always caved to her bizarre demands and would berate the staff in front of her so he would look good for being a tough manager. So shortly after I started, I met Soy Lady. It vaguely bothered me she was getting away with nasty comments to staff and an absolutely ludicrous addiction to lava-hot soy milk, because WTF, but not enough to actually do anything about it. Until one day my manager decided that it was our fault. We couldn't make the soy milk to her specifications, which apparently costed the business a lot of money, and he would take the full cost of her drink from our paycheck each time she returned it. Illegal? Yes. Immoral? Absolutely. Completely insane? You know it. So, the next day my manager decided to take the morning off, presumably due to the mutinous mood of the cafe staff. Soy Lady rocks up, argues the cost of $3 as usual, pays, and then says, "Don't forget to make it hot this time," with a nasty smirk on her face. Filled with sudden inspiration, I ask, "As hot as I can make it?" She replied, "Yes, even though I doubt you could do it right." Neat. I insisted she wait at the counter because it was going to be ready immediately, filled up a metal jug with soy milk, shoved it under the espresso steamer wand, and let it scream. You're supposed to adjust the jug so the milk spins, but I just let it boil, screaming loudly, as I stared blankly right at her horrified face. For what felt like 2 minutes, though probably shorter. She started to look nervous halfway through and every customer was staring. 45 seconds and she started to try to tell me it was done, but I shouted, "I think it can still get hotter," over the wail of the burning soy milk. Finally, I took it off the wand, which was now crusted brown with burnt milk, tripled up on the takeaway cups because it was unbearably hot, and then told we now charge $5 for cups of soy milk starting immediately and we charge full price for refills. Management's orders. Not true, but I was done by that time. Interestingly, I never saw Soy Lady again. The next story is titled, "A Karen Attacked Me Over Headphones and a DVD Player While I Was Camping Because I Was Watching Tailspin," claiming her child needed something to entertain themselves with. In the past I've made posts about my jerk of a brother. But this time something else happened. I decided to go camping again for the first time this year because of spring break. Though I only got the weekend to go. But it was just enough for me to unwind. My brother didn't follow me like he used to. I think I've finally gotten him to understand screwing with me is just not worth it anymore after he drank that growler full of laxative-spiked beer he stole from me last year. So, the drama from him has been as bad for the past few months. Though he's still an entitled jerk, and I've got plenty of things to tell about him and his antics from the months I wasn't posting. I figured my worries about camping trouble were over. But no, I had to deal with a lunatic Karen. I'd already spent one night at my campsite. I was loving the fresh air, and fortunately rain was minimal. That's the only reason I went. Otherwise, I'd have just stayed home. But I had an itch to scratch to get out and enjoy some mountain air. I was far from alone as the spaces around me were full of tents, trailers and RVs. Plenty of people caught the camping bug during spring break, just like I did. I was sitting relaxed in a folding lawn chair and watching Tailspin on my portable DVD player. Yeah, I know it's a cartoon, and an old one at that. But I enjoy since as a kid I used to watch some old tapes of it a cousin had, and I've owned the DVDs of the complete series for around 10 years. And I won't deny I've always had a bit of a crush on the character Rebecca Cunningham. I had headphones on because other campers were playing music, barbecuing, and doing other things. I was just chilling and letting myself mentally zone out with some refreshing cold beer when I got a sudden and hard tap on my shoulder that frankly scared the piss out of me for a second. And then I turned around to see a roughly middle-aged woman in over tight purple yoga pants with her hands on her hips. She didn't have the Karen haircut, but she did have the bleach blonde hair and overly large bug-eye sunglasses. I know in this situation a lot of people will reflexively say, "Can I help you?" But that's just giving an opening to these people to say whatever they want. So, my first reaction is to just angrily say, "What? Can't you see I'm trying to relax by myself?" That set her aback for a second. She didn't go away, so I paused the episode 1 was on and grumpily asked her what she was bothering me about. She spoke up in a matter-of-fact way that sounded like she was trying to be in charge. I guess trying to activate mom mode on a stranger. But I think the unfriendly scowl on my face was enough to show that I'm not exactly friendly. So, she just pointed at the portable DVD player and said that she wanted to borrow it and the headphones for her daughter. To make it brief, I said no. And no is a complete sentence. Because I don't know her, I don't know if she'd bring it back. And I certainly don't know if her kid wouldn't damage it. I do actually keep a smaller backup portable DVD player in the camper too, but I wasn't about to let this woman know that. Well, she certainly didn't take to being told off like that well, and then launched into a tirade about how I was a grown man watching cartoons, how they only have one TV in their RV, and her daughter needs something to watch because her kids can't agree on what to watch, so she needs my DVD player. I coldly said that was not happening, and she actually gave me a loud, "Why not?" So, I pointed out to her that this was really not my problem, and she just crossed her arms and said that as an adult, I should be putting kids first. I said that would be the case if I had kids. But her kids are not my kids, I don't know them, and I'm in no way related to them. And therefore I have no obligation to them. So, she rolled her eyes and then tried to offer me money for the headphones and DVD player. Admittedly I didn't pay much for either of them. But I don't care. I wasn't interested in selling. She only offered $20 for both anyway. I just told her no, and to kindly leave me alone to watch movies in peace. Then I tried to just sit back down and resume the episode. She didn't take that well and proceeded to try and grab my DVD player right in front of me. Like I was just going to let her walk off with it. I got up and stopped her while saying, "That ain't yours, lady." She proceeded to try and shove me over. Try being the word. She clearly underestimated how heavy I am. I don't look it at all, but I'm around 230 pounds. My body frame just hides it well. And I've been in a few brawls in my life. I ended up grabbing her arms and shoving her back with little effort. She fell on her bum into some wet grass and started yelling that I'd assaulted her while looking around for support. I've seen enough Karen stories to know where this goes if I say nothing. So, I yelled, "Yeah, assault. Assault on me when you tried to push me over and steal my stuff. And there's plenty of witnesses around us, lady. Or did you not notice? There had already been a few people around us watching the whole altercation, and they'd gone dead quiet while staring. So, then I said to everyone, check it out. We've got a bona fide Karen here who tried to take my stuff for her precious angel baby. Everybody claps for her. And they did. They actually started clapping. The Karen looked completely humiliated and stormed off screeching that I was an asshole. Her yoga pants ass was all wet from the grass too. Which only made it funnier. I kept thinking, your ass is grass, as she walked away. But I didn't say it aloud. I tried to resume watching the DVD as I was. But I felt uneasy the Karen might come back. She snuck up on me rather easily before. And I didn't want to risk that again. So, I packed up and went back into my camper to continue watching and drinking inside. Got pretty plastered that night. I remember giggling like a moron while watching the episode with the panda people that were evil Chinese stereotypes. Stayed at the campsite for one more night and didn't see the Karen again until I was leaving Sunday afternoon. I saw her standing by her posh-looking RV with a large fountain beverage in one hand and a dog leash in the other. It was one of those yappy little fluffball dogs too. She glared at me as I drove past, and I just waved to her and said, "Bye Karen," out my window. She threw her drink at my truck, but none of it got in through the window. I could hear her yelling at me but couldn't really make out a word of it. I'm not sure what goes on in the heads of these people. I understand this could have gotten a lot worse. Like that nut bar sicking the local ranger on me or something. But I think the public humiliation was enough to make her back off. I can only wonder if the rest of her family is just like her. Glad I didn't meet them. Edit. I would like to clarify that the tap the Karen did on my shoulder was by no means light. She had long fake nails, and tapped my shoulder hard like she was on a mission to dig her nails into my skin in rapid succession. And that really pissed me off from the start. The last story is titled, "Yet Another New Manager Facing the Consequences of Their Action Story." I'll keep the details as vague as possible because I'm still with this organization. I work for a government department. We have offices and locations all over the state. I'm based out of a city that's about a 2-and-a-bit-hour train ride to our head office. At the time I was working in a team that had members working remotely all across the state, looking after policy, process, and quality assurance. Our old manager had gone and gotten himself promoted for being genuinely brilliant at his role. So, our new manager, Steve, was hired in from the glorious world of banking, and he was here to whip us, lazy public servants, into shape. A few days after he began his role, he called us all to a teleconference to inform us he wanted all of us to be at the head office 8 a.m. tomorrow morning for an all-day in-person team meeting. He wanted to see us in meet space to size us up, understand what we were doing, and see where we weren't keeping up with the private sector. As I mentioned, due to the nature of the work we were doing, we were all across the state. So, in person, whole team meetings were rare, and if they occurred at all, they were booked weeks in advance. We were all adept at video conferencing long before COVID. Some of us tried to tell our new high-flyer manager that almost none of us were in the same city as him, and to be there on such short notice would mean travel expenses, meal allowances, overtime, etc. He didn't seem to care and told us in no uncertain terms to just be at head office tomorrow at 8 a.m., before abruptly hanging up. Now, I should explain something. I'm one of a handful of union delegates in our department. I know our award back to front, specifically the sections dealing with travel, allowances, and overtime. So, I engaged malicious compliance mode. If Steve wanted us there, fine, but it'll cost him. So, I quickly went about emailing my team what Steve had done by requiring us to be in the head office at 8 a.m. and what to do. Because we'd have to travel outside our normal work hours, our workday clock started ticking the moment we left our homes and only stopped once we got home. Some of our team traveled overnight. They were entitled to overtime to travel, a dinner allowance, and accommodation for the night, and the same returning. As someone traveling in the morning before 7 a.m., I was entitled to a breakfast allowance, lunch allowance, and if I got home after 9 p.m., a dinner allowance also. So, I left my house at 5 a.m. to catch the only train that would get me there in time. The train was running slightly behind, but I made it in time. So, my first 3 hours of my workday down and I'd done no work. After a brief period of us introducing ourselves to Steve, he proceeded to spend the next 4 hours telling us about all of the things he did at the bank, how he made so much money for them, where they'd sent him as a holiday bonus, how we're all stuck in the past in the public service, the work he'd seen wasn't up to private sector standards, etc. He had all the cocksureness of a finance bro who had always failed upwards because others had picked up his slack. By 3 p.m. my entire team were into overtime pay territory, and Steve was just warming up with his non-charm offensive. Another 3 hours go by with Steve verbally patting himself on his back, deeply in love hearing his own voice, but all I hear is cha-ching cha-ching. Steve decided that 5 p.m. was a good time to finish up. He stopped mid-sentence, looked at his watch, and unceremoniously said, "That's all for today. Go home now," and walked out. After I and a few other gave a few awkward shrugs to each other, we all packed up and started to make our separate ways home after doing no work all day. I, myself got to the train station pretty quickly, and saw a train was leaving soon that would get me home around 8 p.m. Or I could catch the all stations train and get home closer to 9:30 p.m. You know what? No matter how fast I could run, I just couldn't catch that earlier train. Damn, I'd just have to catch that all stations train and be on the clock for another hour and a half, plus have my dinner paid for. Such rotten luck. I submitted my claims the next day, 4.5 hours at double rate, my train tickets, my taxi fares to and from the train station, my breakfast, lunch, and dinner allowances. For me alone it was close to a $500 expense claim. The rest of my team followed suit, and ensured they claimed everything too. Steve tried to fight us on approval for the claims, but quickly learned that unlike in the world of banking, most public servants are union, and we'd raise living hell if he denied our award-guaranteed allowances. His all-day Steve Fest symposium blew a good $6,000 hole in his budget. Needless to say, while Steve was our manager, he never required us to attend an in-person meeting again. Video conferencing was just fine. He only lasted 6 months before, leaving for new opportunities. He just went back to his old job at the bank. Guess he was the one who couldn't keep up. Thank you for listening.